When the name Johnny Bench comes up these days, too many people want to talk about Pete Rose. The scandal, the drama, the fallout.
People say, well, he only bet on the Reds to win, he said. Well, if you don't bet on them every night, you're betting against them. And it's still Rule 21 no matter what you do.
They want inside details about whether Bench resents Rose, why he doesn't campaign harder for his former teammate, or whether the big red machine still gets along at reunions. But here's the real scandal. We've let the shadow of Pete Rose eclipse one of the greatest to ever put on the gear. He was the face of a dynasty, the gold standard at the most brutal position in baseball. In the 1970s, Johnny Bench was respected, revered, and relentless. Now, his body bears the cost of 14 seasons crouched behind the plate. His legacy is too often dragged into controversy he didn't create. This isn't just a story about rivalry. This is about legacy, the kind that gets overlooked because it wasn't loud, messy, or full of sound bites. Johnny Bench wasn't just Pete Rose's teammate. He wasn't just part of the big red machine. He's the greatest catcher in baseball history. Period. If this generation really wants to understand baseball greatness, it's time to stop obsessing over the drama and start appreciating the legend. Johnny Lee Bench was born in Oklahoma City in 1947. But his story truly begins in the small town of Binger, population 600. A town where baseball wasn't a pastime, it was a lifetime. His father, Ted Bench, was a truck driver with a deep love for the game. He'd once been a semi-pro player himself, and he saw something in Johnny early. Not just talent, but focus, drive, and poise. Johnny grew up catching baseballs behind the family's garage, his dad throwing heaters at him without mercy. If you want to be the best, Ted would say, you better act like it. And Johnny did. At age 14, Bench was already drawing crowds. By high school, he could reportedly hold 7 baseballs in one hand. A neat party trick, sure, but also a symbol. His hands were the tools of a future Hall of Famer. But this wasn't a Hollywood rise. Bench didn't come from privilege. He came from work. He once said, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. But I worked hard and had the talent. In 1965, the Cincinnati Reds drafted him in the second round. He was 17. And just 2 years later, at 19, he was in the majors. By 1968, he wasn't just playing, he was Rookie of the Year. The youngest ever at the time. Baseball wasn't ready, but Bench was. Before Johnny Bench took over Major League Baseball, he had to survive the gauntlet of the minor leagues, a place where potential is tested, refined, and, for many, destroyed. After being drafted by the Cincinnati Reds in the second round of the 1965 amateur draft, 17-year-old Johnny Bench reported to the Tampa Tarpoons, the Cincinnati's Class A affiliate in the Florida State League. Tampa wasn't glamorous. Long bus rides, sweltering humidity, sparse crowds. No glory, just grind. But Bench didn't complain. He treated every inning like it was a World Series game. His manager at the time, Russ Nixon, immediately noticed something different. Bench wasn't just talented, he had a calm, calculated mind. He studied opposing hitters like a coach. He worked pitchers like a veteran. And his defense? Raw, yes, but already game-changing. His arm was electric. Runners who dared to test him at second didn't make the same mistake twice. The following year, he was promoted to the Buffalo Bisons, the Reds' AAA affiliate. He was just 18. Buffalo meant tougher competition, bigger stadiums, colder weather, and yet Bench thrived. Teammates recalled how Johnny, still a teenager, would call meetings on the mound when older pitchers lost control. He didn't wait to be told what to do, he took over. In 1967, while playing for Buffalo, he caught the attention of Reds management not just because of his stats, but because of his leadership. He was batting .259 with 23 home runs in AAA against older, seasoned pros. And behind the plate, his glove was gold before the award even knew it. It was clear. Johnny Bench wasn't going to stay in the minors long. That September, just 2 years after being drafted, he got the call. Bench made his Major League debut on August 28, 1967. He was 19, and from the moment he stepped behind home plate, the sport began to shift. By 1970, the big red machine was in motion, and at the controls, Johnny Bench. That year, Bench hit 45 home runs and drove in 148 RBIs. That's not just dominant for a catcher, it's unheard of. He was named National League MVP, the youngest to ever win it at the time. Catching is baseball's most brutal job, squatting through 9 innings, taking foul tips to the mask, calling every pitch, directing traffic on the field. You're the brain and the shield, but Bench, he made it look easy. His glove was gold, his arm was a cannon, his game management was next level, and perhaps most impressively, pitchers trusted him. He didn't just catch pitches, he designed the chessboard. The Reds lineup looked like a cheat code. Pete Rose, Joe Morgan, Tony Perez, Dave Concepcion, George Foster, Cesar Geronimo, Ken Griffey Sr., and then Sparky Anderson pulled the strings from the dugout. But the heartbeat of it all was Johnny Bench. From 1970 to 1976, the Reds became a baseball dynasty. They made the World Series 4 times in 7 years and won back-to-back championships in 75 and 76. In the 76 series, Bench hit .533 with 2 home runs and 6 RBIs, good enough to be named World Series MVP. It was a masterclass in timing and tenacity. He redefined what it meant to be a catcher. Power, precision, command. He hit 10 career grand slams, the most by any catcher in MLB history. Bench wasn't just leading the team, he was the heartbeat of the team. But all dynasties carry tension, and inside the big red machine, pressure built in different ways. Pete Rose was bold, brash, and desperate for attention. Johnny Bench, more reserved, more composed, calculated. And though they coexisted professionally, the warmth was limited. Their personalities clashed. Rose was a self-performer. Bench was a perfectionist. Their mutual respect was real, but friendship, not so much. In 1970, when Bench won MVP, some insiders said it stung Rose, who often felt underappreciated despite his relentless hustle. Over time, the fissures deepened. Rose leaned into rebellion. Bench stayed the company man. And while fans cheered both, the contrast was impossible to ignore. Teammates occasionally spoke about Bench's distance. Some said he was aloof. Others saw it as leadership, silent, steady, and often lonely. Because being the gold standard means being alone at the top. No position in sports breaks you down like catcher. Johnny Bench squatted for over 14,000 innings, took countless foul tips to the face, blocked pitches in the dirt like a human wall, managed egos, called games, took blame when pitchers failed. By the early 1980s, the wear was showing. His knees were down to bone-on-bone friction. His hands were gnarled and broken. He once joked he couldn't hold a pencil correctly, but could still frame a pitch. The physical cost was devastating. He moved to third base, then first, but the magic was fading. Johnny wasn't Johnny anymore. He retired at just 35, but his resume? 14-time All-Star, 10 Gold Gloves, 2 MVPs, and 2 World Series rings. The greatest catcher in history, and that's not opinion. That's the consensus. After retirement, Bench didn't chase headlines. He didn't turn into a talking head. He joined the broadcast booth, did commercials, showed up at charity events. Quiet, modest. But something strange happened. In Cincinnati, a city he helped crown, he wasn't embraced the way Rose was. Pete Rose was the rogue son, the icon in exile. He signed autographs outside Cooperstown and fans flocked to him. Bench maintained his persona and he stayed low-key. Too low, some said. He was never the life of the party, never courted the camera, never fed the tabloid machine. Fans respected him, but they didn't know him. And Bench, for his part, didn't seem to care. But over time, something shifted. As the noise died down, appreciation rose. People began to see the full picture. The work, the sacrifice, the consistency. Bench didn't need to be loud to be great. For players like Johnny Bench, greatness is obvious. But in baseball, greatness must be made official. And that moment came in 1989, when Bench became eligible for the Baseball Hall of Fame. The result was a landslide. He was elected on his first ballot, garnering 96.4% of the vote. At the time, it was one of the highest percentages ever given to a position player. Rioters didn't just vote for his numbers, they voted for his legacy. And on July 23, 1989, in Cooperstown, New York, Johnny Bench stood on a small stage in front of thousands of fans and peers and officially became immortal. The sun was hot and the crowd was loud, but despite the frenzy and the fanfare, Bench was calm as usual. He gave a speech that didn't beg for applause or bask in nostalgia. Instead, he thanked those who helped him get there, his teammates, his coaches, and most of all, his father Ted, who had passed away just a few years earlier. Bench said, "My father once told me, don't look for approval, just do the work. And I think I did." And with that, Johnny Bench joined the greatest to ever play the game. He was the first catcher ever inducted on the first ballot, a symbol not just of personal excellence, but of a position that had long gone underappreciated. That day in Cooperstown, fans cheered, teammates cried, and legends nodded in respect. But what about Bench? He smiled, signed a few baseballs, and walked away quietly, exactly like he always did. Then came later, in 1989, the bombshell erupted. Pete Rose was banned for life from baseball for gambling. This was a seismic shock to the sport, and the debate raged. Was it fair? Was it excessive? Should the all-time hit leader be in the Hall? Players took sides. Joe Morgan, Tony Perez, many spoke up for Rose. And then there was Johnny Bench. He stood firm in isolation of his teammates as other fans in Cincinnati. "If you knowingly break the rules, you face the consequences," he stated. That single quote ignited a firestorm. Sports talk radio crucified him. Columnists questioned his loyalty. Some fans turned bitter. But Bench wasn't trying to score points. He was protecting the sanctity of the game. He never disrespected Rose, but he refused to bend on his beliefs. That quiet strength he possessed was not popular, but it was principled. And in a culture that adores redemption stories, Bench became the odd man out. He wasn't interested in rewriting history. He was interested in protecting it. Today, Johnny Bench walks slower. His fingers are crooked, his knees ache, but he doesn't complain. Because everything he has, he gave to baseball. And now, years later, fans are finally seeing it. Modern catchers like Buster Posey, Yadier Molina, JT Realmuto, they all cite Bench as inspiration. He was the template and the gold standard. Even beyond stats, Bench changed the expectation of what a catcher could be. He made it an art form. He made it a science. And for all his quiet, all his restraint, his impact couldn't be louder. Statistically, Bench still towers above most catchers in the Hall of Fame. Home runs. Bench hit 389 career home runs, the most ever by a catcher at the time of his retirement. That still ranks top 3 all-time among catchers, behind only Mike Piazza and Carlton Fisk. RBI. With 1,376 RBIs, he drove in more runs than Yogi Berra, Gary Carter, and even Joe Mauer. Gold Gloves. His 10 Gold Gloves tied him with Ivan Rodriguez for second all-time among catchers, trailing only the 13 won by Molina. MVP awards. Bench is one of only 2 catchers to win multiple MVPs, the other being Yogi Berra. And unlike Berra, Bench's came in a far more competitive, integrated era. WAR, wins above replacement. Bench's career WAR of 75.1 is second only to Ivan Rodriguez at 79.7 among Hall of Fame catchers, but many analysts argue Bench's WAR is more impressive, considering he played in a much more physically punishing era and carried a heavier offensive load. And here's the kicker. Bench did all of this while playing at the most demanding position in sports, during a time when catcher offense was considered a bonus, not a requirement. By comparison, Buster Posey, 158 home runs, Yadier Molina, 176, Joe Mauer, 143. Bench had 389. And he wasn't padding numbers at DH, he was squatting 140 plus games a year. Even in the post-sabermetrics era, when every advanced stat is sliced and debated, Bench holds up. He didn't just check every box, he built the boxes. Not every legend needs applause. Some legends carry greatness like a burden, quietly, reluctantly, but undeniably. Johnny Bench didn't chase fame. He didn't chase controversy, he chased excellence. He remains the greatest catcher to ever wear the gear. He changed how the position is played. He built one of the most dominant teams in sports history. He stayed grounded while others spun out. That's not cold, that's character. We spent too long glorifying drama, but Johnny Bench, he didn't need a scandal to be remembered. He didn't need a villain arc or a redemption tour. He just needed a glove, a bat, and a plan. Johnny Bench wasn't the sidekick in Pete Rose's story. He was the story. A legacy not made louder by controversy, but made stronger by discipline. And now, it's time we tell it right. Because legends like Johnny Bench don't come around often. And when they do, they change everything. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out our deep dive on Pete Rose and the Hall of Fame debate. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop a comment below.